I'm never going to stop a kid. If Kansas wants to come pay one of my players $1 million, go. Hopefully you make the NFL and you can buy me a Jumbotron. So
they're going to be better because of this move. In my mind, goes to, as a Celtics fan, Brad Stevens stepping down as the head coach and going to general manager. And what happens? Boston Celtics win an NBA championship.
This is one of the most beautiful rings I've ever seen. The 3 trophies, the boat on the side. I mean, my goodness, it is just, I could just stare at this all day.
Hello, welcome back to Division I Rejects. I'm your host, Kobe Manzo. Tonight, we've got a very fun episode coming off of a very successful, very fun trip down in Charlotte, North Carolina for the AFCA convention. Met a lot of folks who I think previously only knew D1 Rejects behind a screen. Pleasure to shake your hands. Pleasure to be in front of a bunch of people and be around some really good ball coaches, learn some football. Also had the chance to meet a bunch of the great companies around small school football or maybe new friends over here at Scoreability. Shout out. Nice little cap to lead things off here on D1R 222. Great head coach joining us here, a small school head coach from the NAIA level. That is Nick Davis from Ottawa, Kansas, who I happened to meet while eating breakfast in the hotel at Charlotte. A lot of really cool things come out of his program. We'll talk with him about the trajectory of the Braves down there. On the Division II scene, we're going to do a deep dive on the Harlon Hill winner, Curtis Allen. We haven't talked too much about him on this program. That needs to change, and it will today in this show. We're giving a breakdown on one of the most prolific running back seasons, I think, in the history of Division II football, and giving him his flowers because he's deserved it, man. After the 2025 season we had a top D2 coach in the country step down. It's probably not news to most of you who tune into this show, but Coach Simmons from Harding, he's taken on a new role with the Bisons down there. We're going to talk all about that and what that means for small college football. And finally, the Cliff Harris, award winner at the Division II and Division III level. Those have been announced. We'll break those down. So excited about that. Also in D3 football realm, we've got a massive new cross non-conference series that spans different parts of the country. We'll talk about 2 big-time opponents that just signed a deal for the 2027-28 seasons, a home-and-home agreement. We got also the Cliff Harris Award winner at that level, and the rejection or exception of some new NCAA proposals, some new rule changes that were brought before the coaches this year concerning not only D3 football, but Division III athletics as a whole. So stick around for that. There's a couple interesting ones that I think you'll be very curious to hear about. At the NAIA level, we've got a top NAIA team scheduling some scholarship FCS competition to open their 2026 season, week 0. We're going to dive into one of the predominantly solid GPAC teams who's taking on a Division I opponent to start this year's campaign. And finally, we've got a school at the NAIA, again, a top 10, top 15 type program that has just inked an unprecedented, reportedly 7 figures media rights deal, an exclusive partner for this NAIA institution that could be a trailblazer and a trend center across not only NAIA, but small school college athletics as a whole. So a lot of very interesting topics. This is the offseason of small school football. Very excited to have you come along with us and join us in this adventure. We're keeping this thing going, man. 365, 24/7. D1R is here to stay. Let's get into that conversation with Coach Nick Davis. Joining the show tonight, it's probably been flooding your timeline with news of new commits to his Brave squad down in Ottawa, Kansas, a man who I had the chance to meet down in Charlotte. It's the engineer of the portal bus himself, Coach Nick Davis. Coach, what's going on, man?
Just excited to be here. Really love what you're doing for all the lower divisions, small college football. Big fan, and definitely we're getting the attention that we've always deserved.
I appreciate that, and I like that you phrase it that way. It's not that anything has changed on the football side. The football has always been fantastic. There's always been incredible people. Now it's just trying to let everyone and their brother know about it, right?
Yes, sir.
I love that. And you guys have done a good job of that in terms of branding yourself on social. I think that's half the battle, too. Like we said, the people in the football has always been there. How do you get in front of the masses? How do you get in front of the audience? You guys do a fun way of branding yourself on social media. The portal bus is kind of the most recent edition of that. Talk to me about the approach there. Of course, the Tulsa Portal House, I have to imagine, plays into this in a big way.
Yeah, we thought that was pretty fun that they were going and doing that. And shoot, small college budget. I probably could have flown myself to Charlotte, but my graduate assistants were going to have to take a bus. So we thought, what a better way than kill 14 hours than have the portal bus where we gave these transfer portal guys a direct line to call into the bus. Our staff didn't have anything to do for the 10-hour drive to Knoxville. So we had a lot of fun with it too, like instead of just listening to music and being bored in a van for 10 hours. We thought we would be able to recruit and it paid off. We got some commitments.
I love that. That is a successful trip. There's a little look at the portal bus. How often were you behind the wheel there?
They didn't let me drive at all.
At all?
I'm too busy on the phone.
Okay. Because originally I had in the little script here, I said the driver of portal bus. And then I'm looking at these videos and I'm like, I actually haven't seen his hands touch a steering wheel. So I'm going to have to rephrase, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, Chris Edwards was the hero of the trip. Alma Scott, Division III football player. So shout out to the Scott.
I love that. And you guys, seemingly have been hosting recruits on campus nonstop the last couple of weeks, as are so many other programs in the country right now, given the timeline college football-wise. Your philosophy, though, in recruiting is not always to look for the D1 bounce back, as some programs have totally gone and flipped and have started to endorse that the last couple of years. Tell me why the traditional high school recruit is still the chosen path of you and your staff down there at Ottawa.
Yeah, so I played Division III football, so I've always been around guys that have paid to go to school. I was at Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology for 8 years, where those kids were paying $30,000 to go to school. So like the transfer guy, yeah, they're cool. They look sexy. Like they played for us. Like it's usually a Division II kid who hasn't seen the field.
Sure.
So like that's an unproven commodity versus a high school kid who was a starter. Now, I'm sure that kid was a starter at his high school when he was a senior, but sometimes that's 2-3 years ago. Like, why is he not playing? So, we still have, I think we have 15 transfers on our team. About 7% of our team are transfers. But what we've noticed is as these other programs have gone for transfers, we're able to get better high school players than we've ever been able to get.
That's an interesting angle, right? Everyone talks about high school recruiting is dead in 2026. Definitely not the case. Certainly still programs like yours out there. So you've found that because of this influx of these teams that be changing and ditching that area of their recruiting, you've benefited from those solid classes in recent years?
Yeah, like what we've really noticed is the Division IIs are really focused, and not all of them, but a huge majority of them are focused on getting transfer portal guys.
Yeah.
Now that kid who used to sign, like we're in Kansas, we have 13 NAIAs. There's really good Division II football, one of the best junior college recruiting in the country conference. The Jayhawk conference is in our state. So it was really hard for Ottawa to get a really great high school player from the state of Kansas. Now, because the Division IIs and the JUCOs are focusing on transfers, we're able to get a really good high school kid from the state of Kansas, not to mention like we're getting kids from Texas, Arkansas, Florida. I mean, we just signed a kid from Hawaii the other day.
That is huge. That is awesome, man. And now you talk about that state and just having very good football. Of course, well aware of the KCAC down there. Fans of this show know the MIAA. And there's other programs and leagues down there that are big time. Not to say you guys have totally shunned the portal. Like you said, still more than a dozen guys. You dip into that to supplement this team. You're not going total. I guess the best comparison would be like a Dabo, or now it looks like Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame now apparently is not signing anyone out of the portal. You guys still do that. When you're having that conversation, you're going through that decision-making process, whether to add a portal-type guy to position or go and supplement that with some more high school talent. What goes into that conversation other than the obvious seemingly of being how quickly you need production at different position groups?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing for us is if we can get a kid at mid-year that wants to transfer, I'm interested. If that kid in December, the end of December, is like, I don't know what I'm going to do, I may go back to the college I'm at for the spring. Like at that point, I tell the coaches, like, I'd just rather go get the high school kid who's going to commit in January and want to be on our team than maybe hope and pray that this kid's going to commit to us in March. So, I mean, that's the big thing for us. But what we really find is, like, I'll reach out to all the college coaches, and what we find of those transfers, a lot of times there's issues with those kids. So I'll just go find a high school kid, and and some of it's our funding and our scholarships. We're not super competitive to go win on those kids like other schools,
I get that.
maybe in NAIA or Division II, which is fine because now we're winning on high school kids that we weren't really winning on, 5 or 6 years prior.
Yeah, and from what I could gather, at least looking through our resources or people over at Athlink and just kind of combing through social media, seems to me that your retention rate pretty healthy over there. Is that the case?
Yeah, I think so. Shoot, man, and I think this is pretty cool. Like whether we won 2 games in my first year, or we won a conference championship and went to the playoffs, or won 1 game. I got humbled after we went to the playoffs and
Yeah.
won 1 game. And this year we responded with 6 wins. We've had 5 kids leave to go play college football at other programs, and really 1 kid has probably had more snaps than what he had at Ottawa the previous year. And I think that kid would have played the same amount of snaps if he would have stayed at Ottawa versus transfer. Now, we've had kids that decide they don't want to play college football. Like Ottawa University is 950 students and 900 are athletes. So if you don't want to be an athlete, it's not necessarily the sexiest place to be, if you're going to be a non-athlete. So, or you miss your mom, or you're homesick, or you miss your girlfriend. So we do lose kids, but we don't lose kids that want to play college football.
All those are very real things, by the way. And I'm sure you could attest to, like, every one of those reasons, probably a reason why a guy is no longer on the roster.
Sure. No, and I think cool part, like we didn't lose 1 starter, on our roster. Of guys that wanted to leave this semester, and this has probably been the craziest portal time. Every one of those starters is coming back to play for us. That wasn't a senior that was graduating.
Man, that is huge. What do you attribute that to? Outside of, like you said, 2 years ago, you guys win 1 game. You're 1-10. This year, you flip it. You're above 500, 6-5. Your first 4 years as a head coach, that kind of has been the trajectory of this program. Yep. And we'll talk about how you maybe level that out here in a little bit. But what do you attribute that retention to? Because obviously an increased product on Saturdays in the field helps, but there are so many other things in today's day and age of college football. So how do you keep those guys on campus?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is the culture. Even when we were 1-10, like the culture was there, and we lost 9 of those games by less than 13 points. So we had opportunities. I think we lost every one of our last division games 2 years ago, and had a chance to win in the 4th quarter. So we were there. Our kids believe. We've kind of set that culture, but we're also transparent with these kids. Like if you're not super productive at an NAIA school and you go to transfer, like that's probably might be the end of your career. If all you have is practice film at a low level, like it's not going to be super impressive. And even if you are impressive in that practice film, if the other 21 guys don't seem to be excited about playing football, like that doesn't entice someone watching that film to think that's a high level of football. So we are transparent with our guys. We film everything too, which I think is hey, if you do want to leave, you got 900 snaps of practice. Send it to the coach and show them that you are, busting your butt and you're doing all the right things if they want to go. And I'm never going to stop a kid. If Kansas wants to come pay one of my players $1 million, go. Hopefully you make the NFL and you can buy me a Jumbotron.
Hell yeah.
Those contracts. But what we've found is a lot of kids are like, I'm not going to leave Ottawa to transfer Division II because they feel like that's a similar level. There's a lot of kids who think, oh my goodness, D2 is such a step up. Our kids, like we have really nice facilities. So it's not like, oh my goodness, that Division II has awesome facilities and Ottawa doesn't. So at the end of the day, if we're taking care of them from a scholarship standpoint and we're taking care of them on and off the field, like I think our kids want to stay unless they know they have a great opportunity to go be a starter at a Division I. Like we've had Division I's try to poach our kids, and our kids have told them like, I got a semester left. I want to graduate.
Yeah.
After I graduate, if you want to have a conversation about maybe grad school, let's go. And I think that is like a thing that's happening, to all the small colleges is a Division I, a MAC school maybe coming in with the 105th spot on a roster for an NAIA kid who's a starter, and that NAIA kid thinks, man, Division I, but really he's
gonna be a depth piece, man.
Player, and he'll have a chance.
Yeah,
we got dogs in NAIA, but I think Ferris State kept a stat. they had 9 guys go Division I, and 5 didn't play a snap. Now they had Trinidad Chambliss, who did really well, but if anybody remembers, he was the backup quarterback and played because the other guy got injured.
Correct. Golker went down with that injury, and that kind of propels me right into the next question, man. This is the one that everyone keeps asking. Will Chambliss be under center for the Braves in 2026?
Yeah, I took my shot. I still have not heard back from the agency. I don't know if I can scrape together $5 million to pay him. Now, John Sherman, the owner of the Kansas City Royals, is an alum.
Okay.
But, you know.
Let's get on the phones.
Yeah. He's worried about building a brand new stadium.
Correct.
So we'll see where Trinidad falls in on that. But he does have a year of NAIA eligibility. He doesn't need to go through any sort of waivers from what I've looked into.
And the NAIA, NCAA conversation, there's a lot of people out there that, especially early in the process or outside of the general sphere of college football, might not even understand what the big difference is between those two different separate kind of governing bodies. And you had put out a post, and it's very interesting, obviously, given the recent voting or lack thereof, or punting, so to speak, of this 5-year eligibility proposition that has been tossed around by the NCAA. The NAIA, your quote was that the NAIA has a chance in April to lead, not follow the NCAA. Expand on that for me and what they have the opportunity to vote on and vote for.
Yeah, so really the NAIA football organization, we play with the NAIA or the NCAA football rules. Mm-hmm. We also have the opportunity to change some certain things if we want to vote on as an organization. But the NAIA is big on like letting its schools and its conferences govern kind of how they want. So Division II, you know, at their conference was looking into the 5 years. The Division I, they're really scared to get sued on changing a rule. So they're sitting there like, maybe we can change the redshirt rule to really get 5 years. But it's only 4 years.
Yeah, from 3 games to 9 was that kind of that was the number?
Yeah, 3 games to 9, like cool. And I don't even think the postseason would count. So a player could play 14 games on that way in red
get
shirt.
A red shirt.
Really,
that's wild.
A 5 years. So the NAIA has always been interesting. We have 10 full-time semesters to play 4 seasons of competition, and they count a season of competition as you playing in football. Once you play 3 games, it counts. So in theory, you could play 6 years, play 2 games, go part-time in the spring, come back for your last 4 years and play full seasons, and you could play 10 years of football in the NAIA. Now, no one really does that. But that's
my gosh.
A kid who, you know, like there's a lot of Division I football players that don't play games until they're like they redshirt. Their freshman year, they don't play. Their sophomore year, they may not get on the field. And then they may start their junior or senior year on special teams. Those type kids, well, those kids have 2 more years of eligibility at the NAIA level. So it's just educating people. You know, we're not going to get the starter at Clemson, but I could get a kid who was 80th on the roster at Clemson to come here, and he's going to have eligibility when he thinks his eligibility is done with the NCAA.
That's a good perspective, though, because you're talking about a guy who, let's stay with this Clemson analogy, right? Mm-hmm. You're on this roster with the Tigers, and you go through, and you're probably promised one thing coming out of high school. You get up to Clemson, things don't shake out or go your way, an injury, grades, whatever happens, and you think, man, I'm not really finishing out this college football experience what I imagined the way that I had thought about it in high school. And if only there was some way I could walk off into the sunset and finish things out, you know, differently and kind of leave my mark on this thing and have something to tell my kids about. That's got to be part of the pitch for these guys.
Yeah, and it's just trying to educate. Like I have I think a decent brand that we can get that message across. Like a lot of Division III schools, if those kids aren't playing as a freshman, they're playing JV. Division II and Division I, they're really not playing JV games. Like we had a Division II quarterback transfer from Tiffin, who if he were to go play Division II football or Division I, he would only had 1 year. But coming to Ottawa, since he redshirted and then didn't play in any games as a freshman, and actually I think they did play JV, but they only played 2 games, he had 2 years of NAIA eligibility. So he transferred to us. We thought he was going to be the guy. We had a redshirt freshman on our roster, beat him out. And, like, I love Keegan Ray to death. Like, he's got another year of NAIA eligibility. Like he's transferred to another NAIA school with a chance to, start for the first time in his career. He did start at Tiffin because of an injury, but goes to St. Francis to have an opportunity to play. So like it's just educating, these kids on what we have to offer and just kind of the different rules. Like every year I'll look at the D3 All-Americans and I'll try to see if they played any games as a freshman because their D3 eligibility is over if you're on the team.
But the NAIA clock. Wow.
Yep.
Okay. Consider me educated. I thought I knew a good amount of these things. I'm learning stuff here, and hopefully the people listening are too, man. And let's talk about your team a little more. We talked about the rebound, right? And you have to talk about it because that has been, perform, underperform, rebound, and now you got to level this thing off, right? 2 years ago it was 1-10. This past year is 6-5. It doesn't happen overnight. What do you attribute that change and that turnaround in success to? And how do you start to level off and start, bit by bit taking this program up a notch each year, man?
Yeah, so I took over for Kent Kessinger, who had this thing rolling from 2009 to 2014. They went to playoffs 6 straight years, 4 conference championships. My offensive coordinator, I was a graduate assistant during that time. My offensive coordinator was on those teams. And really kind of, we were a transfer team. Like we would get Kansas JUCO transfers, we would get California transfers, and we really lived off of that because I talked about how tough it was to recruit high school players from the state of Kansas in our own backyard. So we relied on transfers. We relied on high school kids maybe from Texas. Well, our school decided to start up a campus in Surprise, Arizona. So that is Ottawa, Arizona. Well, they are 3 hours away from Los Angeles with the same scholarship model as us and a brand new school. So like that really hurt our recruiting in the California junior colleges.
Okay.
And that was kind of our bread and butter. So if I'm offering the same scholarship as Coach Murphy at Ottawa, Arizona, and he's 3 hours away and I'm 24 hours away, like that's kind of a no-brainer. So that, because of what we did when I took over, we were majority transfers. So I knew for us to be sustainable, I thought that we needed to go to the high school route. I knew this transfer portal thing was coming up. And so we recruited high school players. So the first year, we kind of took a hit. The next year, we had enough transfers on our team still that we were able to win our championship. Winton Ruth was a phenomenal running back, All-American. We were able to win our conference championship, go to the playoffs. And then I kind of hit a stall of, we didn't have a lot of seniors and juniors on our roster because we went the high school route and our transfers graduated. So then we went 1-10. Well, now this roster was the original freshman class that we recruited 4 years ago to go back to 6-5. So the KCAC is super tough. You'll see all the time a team win one game and then go spend a bunch of scholarship money and get some guys. Like it's a
we know very well how that rolls, man. Talked a lot of KCAC ball this year. Obviously, had a couple of those teams, postseason type contenders from that conference, and it does make sense when you lay it out like that, right? Talk about 4 years as a head coach. That is truly what it takes to bring in your high school class and have them develop over the course of multiple seasons, and that's something we see less and less of. The leash, so to speak, is so much shorter for college football coaches in 2026 than it was just a decade ago. And, even talking, I always go back to the conversation with Matt Walker, who just won a national championship with River Falls. And he had said, man, I should have been fired 3 times over already. The struggles that they had early on as a program, sometimes it takes that time to break through, and a lot of coaches are not afforded that. Some, probably deserve that. Some just need a little more time to stick things out. And, glad that obviously you are getting this opportunity. You have to feel now as though these opportunities, these classes that you've brought in have really laid this foundation. It feels like, at least from an outside perspective, speaking with you, that's got to be stronger than ever with guys that you've handpicked and recruited for this squad.
Yeah, I think that's the huge part. I was telling our offensive coordinator today, we got some discouraging news on kids that didn't want to come. But we're able to have a redshirt freshman quarterback who played really well.
Yep.
Well, he came to Ottawa University because we went to the playoffs and won a conference championship. We have a really strong sophomore or redshirt freshman offensive line class. Well, 6 of those kids decided to come to Ottawa University because we just won a championship. Like, it's easy to win when you win. it's hard to win if you don't win. Like, so it's just one of those things. Like, I love the North Central guys to death, but they're able to get probably a kid that we made scholarship better than North Central because they're winning national championships, right? Like
6 consecutive Stagg Bowl appearances, man. That sells itself, right?
Yeah, like when you win, you win, and we did that at Monmouth College when I was a player.
Mm-hmm.
Like at Rose-Hulman, like we kept winning because we were winning. So like you can convince a kid maybe to come on less money if you're winning. So that's one of those things that we feel really good, and it's like the transfer is the instant, like, oh, we could get really good. And we're sitting here thinking, well, shoot, man, maybe our best team is going to be in 4 years.
Yeah.
Because these are our best high school classes. Like, I'm willing to be patient, as long as Ottawa University is patient with me.
Yes, absolutely. And it does feel like a lot of people have lost that long-term vision, right? Especially at this level. And can you blame them, though? I mean, this is obviously, you talk about, as long as your university, your school, your institution, as long as they share that and you guys have those same values, whether that's through the athletic administration, the people across campus who are ultimately in charge of the decision-making process, a lot of people not afforded that luxury of time. But glad to hear that this place is obviously, going up, and it's good to, refreshing, I guess, for people who, maybe some people just read what they see on Twitter and they think, oh, high school kids don't get recruited anymore. They got to go play actual JUCO or prep school or reclass or whatever. So it's
I think the Division IIs have done a really good job, especially up in the Michigan area and Kansas. They still recruited high school kids. They were just done in June, which has been awesome for us because it's not like we're wasting our time getting these kids to come to campus that break our heart in the last week of January when they decide to walk on at an MIAA school. Like, they broke our heart in June, and we've moved on. Yeah,
that's good, man. Time heals all, huh?
Sure.
Coach, you're the man. I appreciate you very much. Thank you for your candid talk, and looking forward to keeping up with this team, man. What's the next portal vehicle of choice? Anything?
They talked up. I mean, they wanted to. We did the high school commitment bus on the way home, and the really cool part, I think I told you, is during the whole portal bus, we had 5 of our best high school kids commit because they were worried that we were going to go after transfers. When we told them that they were their priorities. So
wow,
our number 1 quarterback called and said he wanted to be a Brave, and
love that.
Several other good players. So
apply the pressure a little bit. This thing goes both ways.
AFCA's in Indianapolis next year, but it'll be after signing day, so we may just enjoy the 10-hour drive to Indianapolis.
Little more, little in silence there, and not so much on social. But Coach, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. Have a good rest of your night, and looking forward to following this Braves team, man.
Awesome. Otter on.
Kicking things off with Division II football and going through trying to figure out how to kick off this offseason this year, there was one thing that was blatantly missing from this show. It was coverage of the Harlon Hill winner, fellas. We got to go ahead and talk about one of the most prolific seasons in running back history at the Division II level, at least. Talk about Curtis Allen, man, the first ever HBCU player to win the award in its 40-year history. This thing has been around. There's been a lot of notable names to take home this award, and this is a guy that obviously earned this thing. When you, pull up the stats, but also cut the tape, what did you guys see when taking a look at Curtis Allen and what he is able to accomplish in 2025?
Well, it's unbelievable, right? I mean, he was averaging close to 200 yards a game. And that stat is that's just unreal, especially at Division II level. Like, I don't even care if it's Division III. That's an unreal stat. Mm-hmm. And when you turn on the film, explosive, tough runner, keeps his feet moving, played through a little bit of injury this year as well, showed that toughness. I mean, this guy, he's a pro prospect. He's the first running back to win this award since 2013. There was a streak at quarterback, so it's good to see another position getting some love, but he totally earned this one. And Virginia Union, because of him, had an awesome season this year. 2,400
yards, 30 touchdowns on the ground, and he did it all with under 300 carries. That's, still really good volume, but not the volume that you see from some of these option-type teams or some of these other squads that are obviously getting the ball in the hands of their backs a lot more than that. The average per game. I don't even think they have it listed on the website right now, but it is unreal. Like you said, he was putting up multiple hundreds of yards per game and just carving up the competition. And yes, maybe not in the best conference in the country is Virginia Union, but they did it against some really good opponents too, and we're a playoff caliber type of football team. They have really carved out a nice spot for themselves in the D2 playoffs the last couple of years.
Yeah, Kobe, I mean, we kind of hit it on the head in the sense of like this team went as far as he was going to take them, and that's a credit to him, but it's also a credit to those big boys up front as well. I think that, you know, when you're a running back winning the award, it's not only a credit to yourself, but also to the guys that are blocking for you, because essentially, like, no player's ever going to win it like by themselves, but like we've saw over like the course of football history that there are a lot of talented running backs that don't have great offensive lines. So Curtis Allen should be at least taking the boys out to Culver's or something like that.
Is that what Virginia is? Just Culver's? Is that the deal down there? Or are we thinking more like, I don't know, there's got to be
I think
Bojangles, maybe. That's my favorite down there.
From my experience in Virginia, I don't think it was a Culver's, you know, in a 100-mile radius. But no, I think that he's more thinking, you know, take the boys out to Waffle House, right?
There we go. Now we're talking. Okay.
Waffle House.
Hey, a little easier on the wallet, too, if you're bringing out the whole offensive line unit there. Probably a factor.
You can
yeah.
bring the 2D.
Yeah.
But Curtis Allen had video game numbers. Credit to him, and I'm with Tim. I think it's nice to see like sometimes a running back win an award. I feel like in the NFL and even in the Heisman, it's like you're almost like handcuffed to win the like offensive player of the year instead of like the player of the year.
Correct. And this is the reaction here from Allen at Virginia Union. The announcement of the award. Like I said earlier, the first HBCU player, to win the award. Coach Parker there, who's done a phenomenal job down there at Virginia Union in 40 years, fellas. That is the first time that an HBCU player has won the award. So certainly a exceptional season that he put together. And again, you talk about watching the film and what he shows in that film. Well, that's a lot of things, to be very honest with you. And kind of at the top of the list, when I watch Curtis play and some of the things he's able to do on the field, very good eyes out of the offensive backfield. He's a guy that no matter where he's getting the ball, he's never in a rush to get to the line of scrimmage. And that goes back to maybe some of their scheme, some of the zone scheme, and some of the things that they run predominantly down there at Virginia Union. But very good eyes, has a good idea of where he's going pre-snap, but is able to adjust, obviously, once the rock gets in his hands. Very fluid, smooth, not a ton of wasted movement in the backfield. That's something you see with running backs as they get more experience. They're not doing the little false stepping before you get to the ball, whatever, for timing and other purposes, but also, man, he's fluid, and there's not a lot of wasted movement or wasted energy. I think sometimes you can mistake that for not running hard or not running aggressive. Not every running back has to run like Pacheco. You know what I mean? There are guys that can move fluid and smooth and not look like they're just trying to put their foot through the turf on every step. He's one of those guys, and it's fun to watch him play. And don't mistake that fluidity and that sense of kind of calm for a guy that's not competitive and will go out there and put you in the turf or, in multiple ways, right? And put you with his shoulder or juke you out and leave you on the ground.
Yeah, and he's always moving his feet. I love running backs to keep their feet moving through contact. His burst to get to the second level was something that popped off on film to me, but also, like you said, that calmness, stay behind his blockers and follow blockers, and he has really good vision as well.
100%. He certainly does. We'll move over and talk about one of the powerhouses in Division II football right now. That is Harding. The Bisons making some pretty big news as of late concerning their head ball coach, Paul Simmons, taking on a new role inside of this Harding program. No longer the head football coach. He steps down, will be taking on a general manager role for the Bisons down there in Searcy, Arkansas. This is an interesting one, I think, for a multitude of reasons. One, you're talking about a coach that is stepping down at the height of his game, at the height of his team's performance. He's the winningest coach in Bison's history, and he is coming off of a season where you make it to the national championship or the consensus number 2 team in the country. Not the first time they've done that. He's won a national championship in his stint here at Harding, but now he is stepping down to take on this general manager role. And before we talk about maybe some of the implications of this and what this means for the greater area and greater region of small school football, I do want you guys to hear, I got a great sound bite from Coach, courtesy of a kind of a radio show that I found here, the Morning Mayhem on the Buzz, that I wanted to make sure we took a listen to before talking more about Coach Simmons.
Nothing like me. He's the kindest, gentlest. He's the best man in the world.
Right.
He was a missionary in Africa. He taught school. That's what he loved, what he wanted to do. So he brought us back to Arkansas.
Context, he's talking about his father here. He missed the little first bit of the bite, but he's talking about his dad in this part of the interview.
He took the job working at a paper mill as a mechanic and did it for 35 years. He didn't like that, but that's what he did to support our family. But I'm telling you, David, he was at every ball game. He never did anything besides spend time with us. There was no golf with buddies, no fishing with buddies. He was in the stands, covered in grease. He was there. That's how I was raised.
Yep.
The pivotal moment for me. I'm sitting in on the bus. Arkansas is playing LSU.
Yeah,
I'm waiting to get for us to play. We're playing Arkansas Tech at 2, and I'm sitting on the bus, and the TV's on, and Wyatt blocks the punt for a touchdown. And it hit me that when that game's over, no one's going to be there. Yeah. Nobody in his family is going to be there. And you and I both know that for a lot of young men, the reality is their dad is not in the stands. And that is a super sad reality for a lot of young men. But it doesn't have to be the reality for my son. I've never wanted to be the coach of the year. That never mattered to me. But, man, I desperately want to be the father of the year if I can. I want to come through for my family.
Really, really powerful words there from Coach, man. And I don't want to play whatever the next clip is there, but really, really powerful words from Coach. And he kind of closes it off there saying that I never want to be the coach of the year. I want desperately, though, to be the father of the year. So this decision obviously stems from the fact that he couldn't be there for those big moments for his son playing and wanting to support him the way that his father set aside so many things and made so many sacrifices for him during his playing days in his younger years. So I think that adds a lot of context to the decision and helping to understand where Coach Simmons' head is at. Obviously, a guy of his stature and at his point in his career to step away from a position like that is going to open a lot of eyeballs and is going to be kind of a head scratcher for a while. But when you understand it from that perspective, fellas, what do we make of the move and what does this mean for small college football?
I don't necessarily mind the move. It's more just like out of confusion, I guess, not out of like his reasoning, but just like the role, I guess. Mm-hmm. I think, a lot of us, like guys who have just graduated recently and even like the old timers at this point, you see the terms like agreed to sign a new deal in the Division I level with whether it's Bryce Underwood or anybody like that. Like, you're just like, whoa, what is college football turning into? So like, is this like the first big pillar that turns Division II into something like that? To where like that's my questioning. I think it's awesome that, Coach Simmons thinks that that's what's best for him and that's what's best for him, his family. So no discredit to that at all. Like, more power to you. I think that's phenomenal. It is just one of those things where it's like, is this the next pillar or the domino effect, I should say?
Yeah, it's interesting to see how many of these different implications or these different additions, that have already seen themselves played out at the Division I level, the FBS kind of Power 4 level specifically, how much of that trickles down to the group of 6 now, to the FCS, now to the Division II, NAIA, Division III. You have varying levels of these different things that are going to make their way into small school football. This could be the latest trend, having a general manager. And to expand on that a little bit more, I think the most importantly, Roddy Moore has been elevated to the head coaching spot. Previously was a defensive coordinator. He was the 2025 Football Scoop D2 Coordinator of the Year. Obviously very accomplished with what him and company, the Bison's company, have been able to do on that side of the ball. The focus for Simmons shifts to, quote, high-level program sustainability. And now his duties will include fundraising, management of camps, and overseeing roster management while allowing coach and the rest of the staff to focus entirely on on-field development, game planning, and recruiting. Tim, is this a new trend in D2 football, dude?
Yeah, I love this. I love this. I think they're good. I know it's hard to say because they made the national championship. I think they're going to be better because of this move. In my mind, goes to, as a Celtics fan, Brad Stevens stepping down as the head coach and going to general manager. And what happens? Boston Celtics win an NBA championship.
Boom.
I that's kind of what the first thought in my mind was. When you get that move and I love that they kept the head coach in-house too, because now there's no pressure of someone coming in externally, bringing in their own culture, bringing in their own guys.
And trying to fill the shoes of Paul Simmons.
Exactly. Keeping everything in-house is super important. So now he doesn't have to worry about the X's and O's as much. He can just draw up the game plan. They're going to keep the same culture, probably enhance it, and he can get all the other stuff that goes on behind the scenes under the control of the football program. I don't see how this hurts the program at all. I think it elevates it.
A lot of small school football programs, those coaches are going to be wearing a multitude of hats. Fundraiser, oftentimes if your school is not fully funded and backed by, the athletic administration, boosters, and otherwise, that's usually a hat a lot of these coaches have to wear. So it's taking one thing off of the plate of the current existing coaching staff, which is why we have seen that become such a really necessary addition to the top level of college football staffs, especially in the day and age of NIL, where these deals, legitimate deals, are being negotiated. Again, we don't see nearly as much of that at the Division II level. That's not to say it's not coming. Right? Very much not to say it's not coming. So an interesting piece. Now, a lot of schools, let's be honest, cannot afford to bring out a general manager for their Division II football team. That's not going to happen across the country. Now, when you think about it, though, the general manager's job is to fundraise, is to put on these camps, these other events, and to find additional alternative revenue streams for these football programs to go ahead and level up. Part of that, you have to imagine, is fundraising your own salary for some of these schools. And I'm not saying that necessarily is what's going on down at Harding and Searcy, Arkansas, but you have to imagine he's funding his own job down there and also going to be funding a lot of other experiences and upgrades and other things for the current players, the coaches on the staff, and just overall probably increasing and improving the quality of the student-athlete experience down there at Harding. So very interested to see. This feels like kind of a case study will be going on the Bisons down there for a little while, and I'd be curious to see who the next couple teams are to incorporate this position, or if any already have some existing GMs that we're unaware of.
I think it's gonna be interesting too, because like Tim said, they went in-house, and I feel like it's gonna be tough sledding for the next head coach, even though he was the DC and even though he knows all the players and everything like that. Knowing that the guy who is essentially a university legend is still in the building.
Yeah.
And like Kobe, and we've seen it, whether it's in high schools. I mean, Kobe, from past experiences where it's like a guy takes an elevated role, whether it's an athletic director, and then is like, you know what? I'm ready to be the head coach again. I didn't lose a step, and then boom, now he's the head coach again. So it's just like, it's going to be cool to see how this interaction. And I'm not saying that Paul Simmons is anything like that, or what was the new name for the coach? I'm blanking on it for a second.
Where are you talking at? At Harding?
Yeah.
That is Coach Roddy Moore.
Yeah. Not saying that he's not qualified for it. I'm sure he would have gotten a lot of other jobs. You know what I mean? But it is always interesting to where it's like, okay, like he's right there still, you know what I mean? To where it's all of a sudden a change of mind. He's like, I want that job back. You know what I mean? It's like,
does the itch return, and can he keep that off?
Yeah, it's just one of those where it's just like, I'm not speculating or anything like that. It's just like when you look at it from outsider's view, you're like, ooh, like he's still there. You know what I mean?
Well, that's where I think that's where when you bring a guy in-house and you elevate him, I think that's where that's why you do it, because you don't want to bring in someone and try and establish culture. Then I feel like those feelings might come into play.
Oh, I completely agree with you. I think that if they would have done that, it would have been worse.
You gotta elevate, especially a program like Harding, who's just is one.
Yeah, it's different if the program's kind of on a down right now, right? If you feel like you've got the guys in the building, you've got the trajectory, the culture there has got to be some of the strongest in America. You have to imagine, just from talking from the guys in that program. I doubt there was ever, right to your point, I doubt there was ever any conversation of bringing in an outsider to fill that role.
No, I don't. And that's not what I was trying to say.
I know it. I'm not trying to bag on you or nothing.
Narrative sense, you know what I mean? Like, we've all seen the movies.
Drew's contributing to the rat poison here for the Bisons.
I mean, yeah, I'm an Arkansas Tech Wonder Boy fan.
Oh my gosh, that's good, bro. We'll close out today. Let's talk some defensive side of the ball. The Cliff Harris Award, the top individual honor, defensively speaking, in small school football. The Division II iteration of the award this year is going to Justin Payoute from Ferris State, the phenomenal defensive back that we got to see in person. We were down small school Saturday show at Ferris State for their Anchorbone Classic game against the Grand Valley State team that maybe didn't live up to expectations this year, but they lived up to it in that game. They made Ferris State, I think, hesitant at a couple points along that game. It turned out to be a really quality ball game. He showed up in that game and every other, fellas. 9 interceptions interceptions over the course of the year. That's good for a Ferris State single-season record. 4 interceptions in the playoff games alone. I believe that was 2 against Minnesota State, maybe 2 against Ashland. He was doing it in the playoffs when it mattered most, and he did it at a clip that was literally among the best. The school record 9 interceptions led all collegiate divisions, and the Bulldogs 30 team interceptions this season, 30 in one season. That ranked number 1 in the nation. And Payoute specifically, 72 tackles, 35 solo stops, and then 4 TFLs. He had 2 touchdowns, one of them on one of those interceptions, and another one on a fumble recovery. That is what we saw from Payoute this year. What did you guys see from the All-American safety?
Well, the one thing I love about this guy, I love defensive backs that can tackle. He had 72 tackles on the year, and he finished with 14 tackles versus Ashland and 2 interceptions versus Minnesota State. This guy was going off in the playoffs. But I just love physical defensive backs as a safety, especially in Division II. That's a position that can really take over a game. It has a lot more power than I think at the other levels. So to have an athletic safety who can come downhill and hit, this guy showed that, he might be a pro level talent.
He plays with reckless abandon, and he does not have the craziest measurables, right? He's not – we've seen some of the pro game go towards these really tall, lanky type of DBs, especially more maybe the corner position. Obviously, safety, that's valuable too, being that presence in the middle of the field. But watching him play, Drew, as a former DB, what do you see from him that makes you think that he does deserve a shot at a professional level?
Yeah, when you typically think about guys that are getting 14 tackles a game against a quality team like Ashland – you're thinking more of a box safety. And we're watching the highlights right now. He's playing to the field. That's very impressive in my opinion. As someone who's traditionally a box safety, I played a little bit of dime as well. Like, it was very easy to get into run fits, playing in the boundary, playing in the box. As a guy who's coming down and just making plays on an out route or going, sticking his nose, whether it's an interception or like fumble recovery, whatever it is, like, look at these plays. Like, these aren't like, where the run's coming. He's going and making the plays. I think that's a credit to him. It's a credit to the Ferris State, defensive staff to put him in spots to where, like, you're going to put your best players all over the field, right? Like, typically when you look at like some of the best corners in the NFL or even in college football, some of them are lining up at nickel. Some of them are lining up at outside into the field, right? Like, some of them are doing the one-on-one into the boundaries. So for a safety to be on those, like, essentially those islands, playing that nickel spot in some coverages that we just saw right there, it's very impressive. And to play with that level of physicality and ball skills, I mean, say what you want about whatever level you want. Like, Trinidad proved it literally this year from this same university that, like, hey, we can play at this next level. Like, Justin Payoute's a very, very successful player, and it's going to be very interesting to see, the next step for him.
And to piggyback off that, I know we're talking a lot of pro comparisons and maybe what that looks like for him taking that to the next level. He's got a year of eligibility is what I understand. He's in the transfer portal currently right now, so we could see, now, not to say we're going to see him under center for Ole Miss in 2026, but we could see him make that jump to a Power 4 level institution and really cut his teeth against some of the best in the country, go get into a power conference and prove and put all those same things on tape that we just watched for a couple minutes against people wearing different logos. Because at the end of the day, that will speak volumes for the people that eventually and ultimately are going to evaluate his talent level and to kind of assign a ceiling to him, as much as those scouting reports proved to be fraudulent for so many. But he was a unanimous first-team All-American by AFCA, Walter Camp, D2 CAA, and D2Football.com. 4 different associations. Wayne Cavadi picked him as his Defensive Player of the Year. I think before a lot of those, the stock is very high on Payoute right now. A lot of teams at the Division I level, taking a flyer on the All-American safety. He'll be invited to the Dallas Cowboys headquarters to accept the award in person from Cliff Harris himself. Pretty cool deal.
That's cool.
Yeah, and Tim, I think you would agree with this, right? Like, you look at like Indiana. Well, they're literally the defending national champions now going into next year. They got good based on taking guys from lower levels, whether it was the Division I AA, JMU, whatever, the guys that had a lot of playing experience, right? So, like, you could definitely see a Justin Payoute going to like a Michigan State, right? Like, what Michigan State would potentially, like, guys that they need, guys that are going to play, guys that are going to be ready to go.
Reunite
right?
with
like
Gulker.
That's what I'm talking about. Like Carson Gulker just transferred there.
Yep.
Like I think Ferris State, and like this isn't like a, they've definitely had a name for themselves, but Trinidad being on the national scene has allowed, like, I mean, Tony Annese, there were videos of Tony Annese on Twitter everywhere, right? Like we all know who he is as small school fans, but they were like, oh man, his coach showed up, and then they've won the national championship back to back. Like, I feel like more teams and more eyes are going to be on this program than they were already.
Correct.
And Payoute, the perfect person to be like, yeah, this kid's next up.
Yeah, they would, to your point too, I guess building off of that, they know the talent level that's coming out of Big Rapids, Michigan. But now when you have such an appreciation and understanding of the coaching staff down there and what Tony Annese and what they've been able to accomplish inside of that building and the expertise at which these guys are being coached and the way this program is being run, that stuff translates too. And I think that's an appreciated part of it too, is you're around a coaching staff that even if you're the best athlete in the country and your coaching staff is, let's say, inept, right? Not to say that that's an example or that there are examples out there, just hypothetically speaking, they know they're going to get not only a quality dude, quality player, but a guy who knows how to operate in a pretty professional system down there in Ferris and knows how to operate the right way. I think that's an underappreciated part of it, and also could explain some of the ease of transition for these Ferris State guys going up to the D1 level.
Yeah, I completely agree, right? Like Bill Belichick always used to say, like, he looked at Alabama players in the draft differently than he looked at a guy from Michigan or a guy from Michigan State, a guy from Ohio State, right? Because he knew Nick Saban and he knew he had him coached right. Like, you look at all those Patriots dynasty teams, defensively, they had like 4 Alabama guys every single time. You know what I mean? Because it was just like they knew that appreciation. And I think that's what the Division I people are starting to look at. Like when it comes to Coach Annese and the Ferris State Bulldogs, it's like, hey, we know that they know how to operate under pressure and they know how to win when it matters.
I love it, dude. Big time. We'll have some more conversation regarding some of the recent kind of coaching carousel deals and some other, maybe some transfer portal highlights next week when it comes to D2 football, fellas. Anything else before we close it out?
No, we're good.
Nada. Appreciate you guys. The official start of the Division III football offseason, and there's one member of the crew, I'll let you guess which one, who is still living in the postseason.
I absolutely am, Kobe. It's very juiced up still I'm still living in the clouds a little bit. It's starting to hit me a little bit that we don't get to go to another River Falls game, but what a season. Honestly, not only because of the season River Falls had, obviously it's been unbelievable, but as well as, being able to cover them in this fashion. We did obviously our first small school Saturday from River Falls, and then we get to end it in the same fashion, man. It's what a season. It's also just an incredible story. Coach Walker's story is incredible. But I'm, still living on cloud 9 a little bit, boys.
Start it with Falcons, finish with Falcons. Jimmy was living it up with the Bears. Different animal, same sport, just different level, huh?
Yeah, I mean, the Bears had a heck of a season. They exceeded all expectations. But I got to say, Seth, I'm very happy for you as much as I am a certified River Falls hater. I've made that very clear. I got to give respect where respect is due. I mean, it's just a phenomenal season for the boys. So I got to give it to you.
I would be cheering for Stout if the roles reversed.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
you. I appreciate that.
Olive Branch to lead off this episode of D1R. Let's talk some good D3.
We actually do like each other.
Let's talk some good D3 football, gentlemen. Massive new non-conference series. Johns Hopkins, Trinity of the Texas variety, announced a big-time schedule agreement, 2027-28, these two Division III football. I think safe to say powers in the national landscape of D3 football here have come together to give us more quality football. Now, we've seen more of this the last couple of seasons. I know you look back at teams like Grove City and their front-loaded schedule here and a couple others that come to mind that, of course, right off the top of the head. But we've seen a lot more quality non-conference football in Division III. A lot of that certainly catering towards that MPI and trying to vie, especially for teams in tougher conferences, for those coveted at-large Pool C playoff spots. But for the average fan and for us, it's just more enjoyable, really good D3 football.
Yeah, this is so good to see, and at the higher levels, at the P4 levels, you're going to see a lot less of this because you're seeing teams play tougher teams in the higher levels of college football and ultimately not getting in, and so it's so good to see good games still happening. Whitewater and University of Maryland, Baylor, they've had their series going back and forth. River Falls and Alma, they've gone back and forth, and you continue to see good teams playing good teams. And I just think it's good for ball, man. I'm pumped for this series, and I think it's going to be one that gets a lot of national attention, and certainly our eyeballs will be on it.
This Trinity team, they return a lot on the offensive side of the ball. They do lose some pretty big-time production. 2 of 3 500-plus yard rushers out of that offensive backfield are gone. Not via portal or any crazy means. They're just graduating, just a D3 way. But they got a big-time guy coming back. The quarterback, QB1 of this team, man, Hondo Franklin, is back in that offensive backfield. He's also got his top target back, Alejandro Tavares, coming off 1,000-plus yard season, 15 touchdowns. He's back in 26 for this Trinity team. Now, of course, we can only preview the team in 26. This series is not happening until 2027, 28. We get excited to talk about it right now. Very good chance a lot of these guys have zero part, in that game in a couple of years from now. Johns Hopkins, of course, the biggest question mark for them is how the hell do you replicate, not replace, but replicate the success of Jeff Schroeder, Bay Harvey, those two in that offensive backfield. Really difficult to replicate that production when your quarterback and leader of this team, who we read about during the playoff run, had a very unique story, both of them coming to Johns Hopkins and, of course, Schroeder in the backfield. This team has rebounded before, but that quarterback room is wide open down there in Maryland. Their linebacker, Browning Trainer, he should be back in the mix. 100-plus tackles this year, 11.5 TFLs, certainly a leader on the defensive side of the football. But, Seth, you sat down with Coach Urban, still a little salty. I wasn't there for that one. Definitely wanted to meet that guy. But what did you learn about his Trinity team in your sit-down in Charlotte?
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that wants to keep playing quality football games. And you're seeing some teams not be able to play 10 games because they're too good. And so what's the answer? This certainly seems to be Coach Urban's answer is go play a really good team and a semifinalist in Johns Hopkins. Learning a little bit about his story, he's an NFL guy from Division III. Now he's actually one of the highest ranking members of the AFCA. And they were, this is something we're going to talk about here in a little bit, but there was a lot of proposals. There's a lot of voting that goes on with this, but what an incredible human. It's no question now to me why they continue to have success. And, they had that early loss to Barry in the season, and then they were able to rebound, win a playoff game, and then ultimately played Barry again and had, unfortunately for them, the same result, but quality human being. Excited to continue to follow this Trinity team, and I'm excited to see what happens with this team. And obviously, we don't get to see this matchup till 27, but yeah, we certainly going to be able to have our eyes on it in the next couple of years.
And Tucker Horn, the former quarterback, believe he's still with the Argos in the CFL. Did we confirm that?
I'm not exactly sure, but with that guy, they always had a shot at winning a football game.
Yeah.
And it feels like this guy now that they have, Franklin, he's of similar stature, similar build, but it's really hard to replace a guy like that, especially a guy that played for as long as he did. But Franklin, he's only going to continue to get better, and I'm sure that he's licking his chops, ready to get back out there this season.
Love the fact that in the tweet here, he says, "Attention, college game day." Oh, and D1 rejects. There's an awesome tailgate zone here at Trinity that you may want to utilize for this series. Fall of 27 in San Antonio and the fall of 28 in Baltimore. Outstanding college football. I think that is a formal invitation, gents.
Yeah, that'd be electric down in San Antonio.
San Antonio would be a hell of a lot better than Canton, Ohio for covering these games, man.
Yeah, man. Night game too, fellas. Night game, I believe, is
awesome.
What's scheduled on that day also.
As long as it's above 20 degrees, I think.
I don't think we have to worry about that.
Yeah, you guys
I think we'll put it into consideration.
Out there for that game, you guys looked freezing.
It was ridiculous, dude. The whole desk was frosted over by the end of the show. It was insane.
The first game was colder, in my opinion.
Yeah?
Because we weren't prepared.
We didn't have any jackets on.
We weren't prepared. We
No.
weren't prepared.
Straight polos, right?
Yeah, boy.
Let's talk some proposals. You kind of mentioned it in terms of AFCA and the voting that goes on with these proposals. Each level has their own kind of intricate deals, and they all operate, yes, under the same governing body of NCAA, but they do have different rules and different kind of niche things in between all these different levels of football. The Division III is no different. We'll talk about a couple of the proposals today, fellas, starting with this idea of the super conferences. That's not their verbiage. That's mine. But right here, proposal we'll say Proposal 5, the AQ proposal, to develop a formula to provide multiple automatic qualifiers to multi-sport conferences that have 12 or more core members, and then blah, 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 blah. What we need to know from that is, from a football standpoint, this proposal is saying that if voted through, football conferences with 12 or more members would be given multiple AQs to the playoff. That's a very big deal, right? Now you're talking about, that's where the super conference idea comes from, where now you go back to Greg Sankey talking about the SEC and how they should have 6 automatic bids into the national playoff. What if we saw the PAC expand to a 15, 16 team super conference that was guaranteed 2 or 3 or even more spots into the national playoff? This was voted down, and it's just an interesting idea that I guess I honestly, admittedly, had not really considered at D3 football.
The first thing that came to my mind, comes to my mind was how interesting like a CCIW and a WIAC merge would be if they really wanted to get crazy with it. Sure. So we could finally settle, because we have all this talk about like these North Central guys, they don't play anyone all year. Like now they can play against everyone in the WIAC all year long. We can finally figure out like who, you know what I mean? We had this debate for a while. But I mean, there's a ton of other conferences too you could talk about merging and stuff that'd be really cool. I think that could be a trickle down effect, if you will, to this rule change if it goes through.
Yep.
Yeah, and so it did ultimately get shut down. And how these rules are proposed, as I understand it, is each conference essentially brings a proposal or 2 or 3. So there was a conference that brought this proposal to the table. I don't know exactly which one that is. I don't disagree with this one getting shot down, because ultimately, you're going to get some teams that maybe aren't the best conferences, but just have the most numbers. And that doesn't necessarily say you should get, more AQs, but I don't disagree, like I said, with this getting shot down, because there's conferences with better teams that don't get 2, and I don't think more is going to ultimately equal better teams. So I don't disagree with this one getting shot down.
Volume is not the best metric for success, right? Just because there are more does not mean that the mean or median level of play has all of a sudden risen. You could have a conference, the Gulf South, I know it's the Division II comparison, but the Gulf South is a great comparison when we talk about this topic right now. The Gulf South has 4 football teams, but it's West Florida, Valdosta State, West Alabama, Delta State, 4 playoff contention type programs, all of which had meaningful arguments of getting into the playoffs in the last couple of years. But there's only 4 football teams, right? You can't give them 4 bids for a 4-team conference. So apples to oranges in a way, but volume, I think that's the best way of saying it. You kind of hit it on the headset. Volume is not the best metric of level of play and level of football. The next one concerns what a lot of people come to know as basically red shirts. It's eligibility, criteria for determining a season of eligibility, more so specifically, the minimum amount of participation, and only competition triggering a use of a season. That's the really important piece at the tail end of that. Only competition triggering the use of a season, therefore saying that practice would not trigger that. And it says to specify that a student athlete would be charged with a season of eligibility if the student athlete competes at any point during the traditional season. So that was also shot down. Now, I guess the question, and I kind of have a better understanding of it after we had talked down at the AFCA and becoming more familiar with this D3 level. But Seth, why would teams be opposed to red shirts? Because I think from the outside perspective, this is a net positive for college football. Obviously, not everyone sees it that way because it was voted down.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because you have teams in let's say the public realm, which ultimately equals which conference, the WIAC. You have teams that are doing what's called gray shirts now, which essentially means you're on the team, but you're not officially a part of the team for the season, which means that you save that year of eligibility. However, you can't practice, you can't be a part of meets, can't go to lifts. You're essentially a regular student for the entire fall. And so you have teams that are able to do that because they have really large rosters, right? However, the reason why this got shut down is because you have teams that regularly need to use freshmen as their 2s and their 3s.
Yeah.
And so a team that has maybe only 50 players on their roster, there's no way that they would do this. So they would see it as a disadvantage to be able to redshirt even more and get that development even more. So teams that gray shirt, they want this to happen. Your WIAC teams, I don't know how Mary Hardin Baylor handles this, but I know they've had that here and there. But the teams that have gray shirts already and do that, they want this so that their guys can practice. But the teams, I promise you, that have smaller roster sizes, they want nothing to do with this because it's going to continue.
It's widening the gap, right?
Exactly.
Yep. 100%. And that does make sense. And I'll be the first to come out and say, like, I hate the fact that this is not a thing at the D3 football level. And for those guys that have had to go through that gray shirt process and not be fully involved in that capacity with the team, lift, meeting, practice, those kind of things for the entire course of the year, from a perspective of just a student athlete and like life experience, you're putting everything on hold for a year. And yes, you're working out and you're still working towards a goal, and eventually you have that promise of being on the team, but you're not going to practice every day and getting the real reps and getting that true development. And that just, I hate it. I hate that.
Yeah. Two more things on this. One, I think the other reason why this got shut down, because this is not just a D3 football thing. This is an NCAA rule. And so I get it. If this was just a football thing, I bet you it might have got re-upped. I bet you it might have. But when you have, especially when you're not giving scholarships and teams are not fully funded like they are at the Division II and the Division III level, or Division II FCS and FBS levels, if you came back, let's say for baseball or softball, you then have to not only come back for the fall, you have to come back for the spring, and then you again are putting your life on hold a little bit further. I think football would be all about this. So I get that. But I think from a football perspective, I think if you started to do red shirts, you would then ultimately see teams have larger recruiting classes. And so because this is not just a football thing and it's a Division III thing, that is why ultimately I think this rule got shut down.
How much onus do we put on the fact, too, that a lot of these Division III institutions are not maybe to that university standard, and that across the country there's a lot of these that only offer the undergraduate degree, the college level degree, where they might not be on board with this because you only offer a 4-year degree as the structure kind of currently stands. And so to give someone a 5th year of eligibility, you're basically saying, hey, you either have to maybe double major or you're going to be transferring out because you're going to go pursue some type of post-grad opportunity. So you have to imagine that those schools, these institutions with the post-grad opportunities for these players, these athletes across whatever sport, they probably, again, are all for this. And others that cannot offer those same experiences at their respective institutions probably fear that this is just widening the gap.
Well, I'll take my very own experience with this. I had a COVID gave me a year, a MedRed gave me a year, but I was almost done with my degree at Simpson. But I really wanted to pursue a master's degree. Simpson didn't have a master's degree, and so I started looking for programs that had, master's programs woven into it, among other things. And so they were already at an advantage with COVID because they were already getting those types of people, and so you would see a lot of 5th years. You're already seeing it with, maybe teams that had a red shirt at Division II. Caleb Blaha, for example, he had an extra year. Now, he didn't pursue a grad degree, I don't believe. However, he was able to continue to play if he wanted to get that master's degree for another season. So, yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. Jimmy, were you a red shirt at Northern, if I remember correct?
I was the redshirt at Northern, and I did a master's degree at Stout as well. So this also applies directly to me.
Exactly.
I mean, talk about from a redshirt perspective. You kind of boil it down. Like, what was the most valuable part of that redshirt experience, and how do you feel like that sets you up?
I think being acclimated with my teammates was a huge thing. Like, you're around all the guys and you're at practice, and like building a culture, being around the people who are like the leaders of the team. You start to understand what makes your program important. You start to like really find out like what you need to do in order to be successful in college football. And I think practice was monumental for me and tons of other athletes too. So I'm not sure how I feel about this rule, if I'm being honest.
No, I'm with you. And again, I look at it, of course, from a different perspective, not being maybe exposed to a lot of until recently, as of late. But from the Deep 2 perspective, again, it's very different. Now, the last one is not something I thought I would see scrolling on the NCAA Division III page, but here it is. Ethical conduct, sports wagering activities, elimination of prohibition on wagering of professional sports, to eliminate the prohibition on wagering on professional sports. So, long story short, gentlemen, Division III athletes now allowed to wager on professional sports. And the NCAA, I mean, you talk about a total 180. I talk about policies that they have either rolled out or rolled back in the last decade. And this feels like one that has totally flipped and gone in the other direction. And while I do totally understand where this is coming from, and you want to keep the true authenticity and the true values of the game by not allowing them to bet on college athletics, that should, and I don't think will ever change. But professional sports, what do we think?
Yeah, I'm cool with it.
There you are.
Color me surprised, bro.
Yeah, hey.
Well, remember, this is pro sports. You still cannot bet
Correct
on NCAA sponsored events.
What
So
about
if it's
NAIA? Now it just says professional, so I'm assuming NAIA is not.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that this happened because I think it's harder to track.
Yeah.
First of all, because at the Division I level, obviously, like the ties to the pro world is a lot different. But I think they saw it as, hey, if an athlete wants to go and put some money on an NFL team, whatever, like we don't care. And again, how many times have we seen like a violation of this entire thing happen in the Division III world? I don't think I've heard of a lot of it. You've certainly heard it the Division I level, but I'm not necessarily opposed or against it. I also think that this encourages it potentially a little bit more, which I don't necessarily think is a good thing. I'm not against gambling by any means, but encouraging people to start, I don't necessarily think is the best thing. However, like I put my fair share of bets on sports and I don't mind it, but it's certainly an interesting rule for sure.
It definitely is. Just not one that I really expected to see, to be honest, rolled out amidst all this eligibility and different rules of those things. That was an interesting one, but we'll keep it moving. Let's talk the top defensive player in all of Division III football, John Sullivan. He wins the Cliff Harris Award, and you look at the stat line there on the graphic. This guy was as disruptive as ever this season. We saw him play against this River Falls team, and they did a really good job against that defensive line for a couple of reasons, and it all stems back to tempo, right? Keeping these guys out in the field, making sure they are just ultimately exhausted, and really not allowing for a whole lot of substitutions, correct? Because if this offense is out there not subbing in players each play, the defense is not afforded that same opportunity. So you keep up the tempo. We saw River Falls take advantage of that in a really good way. But this unit had been so incredible to watch all year. Sullivan himself, 73 tackles, 8 sacks, 21 quarterback hurries, 8 PBUs, 22 tackles for loss. That number there, 22, that matches Ben Hare's 2004 single-season record, his 39.5 career TFLs, 6th all-time at NCC. Sullivan, the only defensive player in the nation to earn first-team honors from all 4 organizations that issued All-American teams. Wow.
Yeah, I'll tell you this, just talking to the River Falls staff leading up to that thing, they were definitely nervous about this dude. He's a game wrecker. He has been. And you hit the nail on the head. I think we definitely, I'm not supposed to say we via Pat Coleman. I'm supposed to say the Falcons. So I'll say that, but definitely neutralized him a little bit. You saw him had the one big play where he blew it up, and I like the 57 terrified offensive lineman in 2025, which is
I like that.
I like that a lot, but absolute stud, game wrecker. It takes a village to stop the Top Gun offense, and only Oshkosh certainly figured out how to do that. But you could see he was huffing and puffing towards the end of that game. But this dude, I mean,
you could literally see, when he says you could see it, you could literally see him huffing and puffing because it was like 15 below zero. Not really, but it felt like it.
It brought a tear to my eye because it was so special to see him huffing and puffing like that. Obviously, you don't want to see him go out of the game, of course, but this dude's still absolute stud, absolute weapon on the defensive line. I'm excited to see if he gets any invites once this draft season comes around.
That's the question, right? In terms of next level projections, Jim?
I think this guy needs an opportunity at the highest level. Whatever it is, he just needs a shot. I know there's a lot of teams that need a good pass rusher, someone that can stop the run, get after the quarterback a little bit. The Chicago Bears. So save this clip. We'll see what happens. Save the clip. We'll see what happens in 6, 7 months, 8 months. Who knows?
Is this you making your pitch right now?
Hey, Ryan Poles, if you're listening, D1 Rejects, give this kid a call.
Now, you look at his success in that group, that group on that putting their hand down in the line of scrimmage, that contributes so much to the success that this defensive back end from North Central, what they had this year, because of how disruptive he and this front had been. You're causing so many these errant throws, these other situations. You're making people bring down decisions and make decisions in a very haphazard manner because of the pressure that you're applying to them. He'll be invited to the Dallas Cowboys headquarters to accept the award in person from Cliff Harris, which is going to be a really unique deal for him. We've seen that, for a while now for these small school guys. But you cut on some of the tape of this guy, and you see, whether it's just line up or you see a couple stunts right there, he has a knack. For someone of his size, and I wouldn't say he's the fastest prospect we've ever seen cut on the film, but he has a knack for getting off these blocks. He's quick. His hand placement always seems to be in the right spot at the right time, and he finds his way into the backfield. He is disruptive. That's the best word to describe him. He's swinging these running backs around like it's none of his business and tackling them for a loss at seemingly every clip. And yes, I do understand this is a highlight reel.
Well, I mean, it's basically the entirety of his career has been a highlight reel up to this point. But yeah, I definitely agree, Jimmy. They definitely need some help on that D line, and I think he could probably help.
I 100% agree with you. 100%.
Jimmy, can you hear him? I can't hear you.
No, I can't hear anything he's saying.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I can't hear him.
Okay. I was waiting. I thought
Muted.
it was my phone.
My bad.
Yep.
What I was saying is the measurables always going to be considered from a Division III guy. Now, speaking of measurables, you go to a pro day, that type of event. Let's see what he puts on. Puts on the stopwatch, puts on some of these different things, and this is all assuming he wants to play professionally. That's not a given for a lot of these guys at small school. I think we have to remember, right?
Yep.
Well, look at last year. I mean, there was not a single D2, D3 guy. I don't know if NAIA was included in that, but there was not a single guy drafted. And there was an all-time low as far as signings. And so you hope that trend flips, especially, I love that the Trinidad thing happened this year and putting light on Division II football. So you hope that guys are getting more opportunities, but you're seeing guys transfer up to go get that opportunity. So it's like would Sullivan,
we're still claiming those guys, by the way. Absolutely still claiming those guys.
Absolutely.
Episode 149, Trinidad Chambliss. Go back and look.
Would Sullivan transfer up after a year like that if he was a junior? That's one of the questions. Like DJ Fox, we put out the video today. Like he's transferring to JMU, and who knows how much he got as far as NIL's concerned, but certainly is it's a big selling point. Like he probably would have loved to come back for another year.
Sure.
But the pro opportunity and the money is certainly it can be life-changing.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, you took that from the player's perspective. You have to be almost stupid to turn that down. As much of a connection he obviously has with that staff that believed in him and helped cultivate him into that player that we've seen on Saturdays. But the last Saturday, the logo matching your hat right there, the D3 Football Championship, spike of the ratings, viewership on ESPN for 2026 Stagg Bowl, 279,000 people tuned in. That's up over a quarter there, 25.6% from the previous year. And that was a North Central Mount Union matchup. We're not talking about some no-name teams that made it to the national championship. Those are two of the powerhouses, the Blue Bloods in Division III football. Mount Union, Blue Blood. North Central, maybe not Blue Blood by definition, but obviously recent dynasty and domination. But this is very encouraging for D3 football, and I know a lot of the talk and the chatter was about them competing, quote-unquote, with the NFL on that night. And yes, I understand that football viewers are kind of bunched into this same category. The same people that are watching Division III football, probably not a lot of the same that are, that Sunday night football, unless their team is playing. Obviously, that the regional factor could play a part in that. But I do totally understand that getting a standalone time slot where nothing else is going on is important, but there's a reason that's a standalone time slot, because that's when no one has the TV on. So I'm not the person to speak on this and the history of this. I know there are so many others that would be maybe more articulated at putting this together, but to me, put it on when people are going to be watching, and don't maybe focus on, putting it on when nothing else is happening. I just don't know how many people you're finding that are just scrolling the TV channels, checking out what's going on any given day. But what do I know? I'm not in the front office at a network, so.
Yeah, pretty soon, one of these days, this could be on like Amazon Prime or something, not even on like a regular TV network with the way
that actually would be terrifying.
Yeah, because everything's getting eaten up by these like Peacock, Amazon Prime, like whatever you name it. And I think this could end up coming down like the lower levels of football. If the viewership is there, well, I don't know what would be holding them back from that.
2035 Stagg Bowl on Apple TV, and that's when I check out.
Well, I can't remember who I was talking to about this early. I think it might have been Crystal Lanning, but I asked the same question that a lot of people ask, like, why are we putting this thing up against the NFL? But then I was reminded that how lucky are we that we get to be on the prime time spot on ESPN.
Yeah.
Like for the Division III national championship. I mean, how lucky were we to have that? And so again, I'm going to side with Kobe here on the who are we to talk about this whole deal. But here's what I will say though. Division III football is up and to the right, and it is because of a culmination of efforts over the last year, and obviously the last, before that, but this last year, man, there's a lot of people involved making this thing go. Then you combo that with an incredible story of a team that could potentially go back to back versus a team that is probably doesn't even know what to do with their hands because they're here for the first time, and so it's awesome to see. I'm so happy for D3 football. I hope this continues. I hope the support from the public continues. And I'm grateful that all of us had even a tiny little piece to do with this whole thing, man. 100%
agree with that. And, it's like I tell, up here at Northern Michigan, we've had football recruits in and out and official visits. You'll see where I'll connect all the dots here in a second. But I always tell them, I'm like, man, a photo shoot should not determine where you're going to school. Like if you're picking a school based on what school gave you the best graphic or the best photos, you got to look in the mirror and you got to reevaluate. I'll say the same thing for us, man. Small school Saturday show, that's not going to determine 200,000 plus more people come rolling in for this show. But the same thing I tell the recruits, it can't hurt. It definitely can't hurt, man. It's only going to be a net positive.
Remember that, ESPN. Remember this. Remember
this. The two previous Stagg Bowls aired on ESPNU were Friday nights in December. And, of course, that was before the playoff expansion, right? Going to 40 teams, expanding this whole deal by a week or so. And those were viewed by 50 and 70,000 less people, respectively, in 2023 and 2022. Those are very recent numbers. This is not talking about, that didn't start with a 19, right? These are very recent numbers within the last 5 years. Those numbers are staggering, and there's a couple other really good ones here, courtesy of our friend over there at Couch Crew. Here are just a few D1 Power 4 games that had lower viewership than this year's Stagg Bowl. Stanford and SMU, Wake and Oregon, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, Virginia and Cal, many more examples. Those, some of the big marquee names, and he says what we think as well, D3 football is big-time football too. Absolutely love that.
I'm curious what I would have loved for Couch Crew, shout out him, he does a great job, but I would have loved to see the comparison of the network as well on top of that. Like,
like where they each play.
Was that ESPN? Was it I'd be curious to see that, but
was it the CW?
Right, that's what
Is that the Pac-12? Is that who that? I think they're with. They got something weird going on up there.
I think the CW should be on I think the Pac-12 maybe should be on like the Hallmark channel or something. Or the,
oh my gosh.
Maybe I'm trying to think. Maybe Cartoon Network potentially. That would be a good one too.
Nickelodeon, you get an MVP for all the games.
But you don't even get the you get like Nick at Night. Pac-12 after Nick at Night. Like that's what I want. That's what
that is terrible.
Tell me people wouldn't be watching. Instead of George Lopez at 3 a.m., you get Oregon State versus who else is joining in that dang conference now? Boise?
Like Fresno, yeah.
Fresno, yeah. That's what kids should be waking up to at 3 a.m.
Well put, dude.
Flip it.
That's all we got, man. A lot more D3 stuff coming. Next week, we'll talk about a team moving and leaving a conference to become independent, some big-time coaching hires in the D3 landscape, and whatever else happens to come our way in the next 6 or 7 days. Sweet, fellas.
I hope we get a lacrosse hire. That's my goal to be able to talk about.
Like that. Yeah. Talk about the odds. I mean, that's, definitely some internal interest from my understanding down there in La Crosse, but also, if there was that much internal interest from the administration down there, you would have thought that would have been maybe solidified already. So definitely the longer this draws out, the more I'm leaning towards an external hire and bringing someone in, which that could have some serious ramifications on the current staff there. Very curious to see how that plays out too.
You guys know who I want to run the show there. I don't even have to say it.
He's a fantastic football coach, by the way.
I would love to see it, dude.
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly. I wonder if there is a hiring committee involved, and that's what's taking forever. That's my guess. Is that they had an external hiring committee do this. Now I don't know if they do that at Division III level. I know they do it at some of the higher levels, but I'm curious as to like what their process is. If it's just the AD, because Kobe, you're 1,000% right. This would have been sign, seal, deliver, especially because
no interim either, right?
No interim, and Coach Janis did not bring that staff with. It's entirely new staff at Northern now. So I'm really what are these guys going to do if they don't retain, especially this late in the process? So I hope that next week we are able to elaborate on that a little bit.
Get some clarity. The carousel continues to turn, my friends. Appreciate you guys. Time to kick into the offseason with NAIA football. And Matt, we've got a pretty big announcement from Northwestern over there out of the GPAC, a team that really turned their season around about halfway through and had some statement wins after what was kind of a tragedy. I mean, I don't think that's hyperbole, right, to say that. I was struggling to find the word, but your bus runs into a pole and you suffer some injuries on a team, and that is the, quote, spark for this group to go and finish out the rest of their season as strong as they did. They just announced that they're going to open 2026 at FCS Western Illinois. That was a pretty big announcement coming out of the GPAC. Give me your initial reaction to that one.
Yeah, I think it's always a good thing when these NAIA schools can get out and play, not just teams from other conferences, but, a Division II team, a Division III team. And in this case, an FCS team. I love seeing that competition, especially when, with Drake in the area, a lot of GPAC schools, Northwestern being one of them, have taken advantage of that opportunity in the past. But I think, too, just with the way Western Illinois is built, it's going to be a bit more of a challenge compared to that Drake game just a couple of years ago.
100%. That Drake game you allude to in 2023, they win that in a really tight game. This one, certainly a little bit different. And of course, the outside perception it's different, right? Drake is in that non-scholarship FCS. How do they fare against a scholarship FCS program? The Leathernecks struggled last year, 4-8 last year, 3-5, inside of Ohio Valley Conference play. The stat, though, that I wanted to pull up and talk about this one is kind of an interesting one because they could be on track to be an unprecedented area of NAIA football. The stat here, courtesy of Daniel Versteeg on X. He says, I believe the last and I think only time a GPAC school played a scholarship FCS was Sioux Falls prior to making the move up to Division II at North Dakota in 2009. The Coup won that game 28-13. He says it could be another chance for the GPAC to put another FCS feather in their cap. I like that. Went back and took a look. That North Dakota team finished 6-5 that season. That was not beating on a team when they were down. That was a team that had some pretty statement wins over South Dakota amongst other squads that year back in all the way back in 2009. But this could be, I guess, version 2.0.
Yeah, and I mean, that Sioux Falls team is really interesting too. That's at the tail end of Kalen DeBoer's run there.
Correct.
The so obviously that's good company to be in if you're winning FCS games like that at this level. But it's super intriguing, I think, especially when you look at the outlook for this Northwestern team next season. Obviously, like we had mentioned beforehand, they kind of had a rocky start to their year, getting out to a 4-4 start, I believe, if I recall correctly.
I think they were under 500 for a time there, for a pretty short time, which is wild.
Yeah, which is insane to think about. I mean, you lose games to Mount Marty and you lose games to Hastings, which are things that have not happened to this team in any recent memory at all. This was actually the first time Northwestern has lost more than 3 games under Coach McCarty since his first season back in 2016. So this was certainly rarefied air for this program. But like you mentioned, that spark, as tragic as it was, thankfully you don't lose anybody in that bus accident, but it's still something to where you have to readjust a little bit, right? And they're able to readjust. They're able to win those games, and it was off the back of the best defense in the entire country by SP+. And I think it's super important to note that because this is a defensive unit that we talked about being stout all year. Northwestern had their struggles on offense with Colby Duncan, but I think him coming back and having a year of experience under his belt is definitely going to help. But defensively, you bring back 8 of the 11 guys on the best defense in the entire country.
That is massive. Potentially 6 of 10 all-conference guys coming back. Colby Duncan, certainly at the top of that list, had some big shoes to fill when Graham Stagg got out of town and tried to make his mark on the FBS level. Who stands out in that list of returners that should be big-time impact playmakers? Obviously all of them, but pick a few and then tell me about them.
Yeah, I mean, Kyler Fritz is probably a guy you're going to look at in the defensive backfield for this Northwestern team next year. He's going to be pushing All-American. I mean, he was a first-team All-Conference guy last year, was already in that conversation. And I think, too, Jordan Carter, who's also a member of that secondary, who was a second-team All-Conference guy, you are potentially looking at, I don't know, like a Legion of Boom in the NAIA. Like, this secondary is going to be absolutely ridiculous. And not to mention, your front 7 is led by Jackson Smith, who was a second-team All-Conference linebacker, who's returning from last season. And I think those 3 guys at the core for the defense is going to be huge that they return those guys. And also not to mention, Colby Duncan, like I previously mentioned, coming back. Gianna Bennett, honorable mention at kicker, the last for the Red Raiders, making that list and coming back for them. Coach McCarty said that she is a huge weapon for them. So obviously special teams is a third of the game. Got to make sure you lock that down.
I like it.
And, Corver Hupke on the offensive line. He was an honorable mention guy, one of those all-conference guys coming back. But, being the anchor for an offensive line that maybe struggled a little bit more than usual with experience is going to definitely bode well for him. I'm super excited to see this game because we're going to learn a lot about this Northwestern team out of the rip against some really good competition that they haven't seen before.
Yeah, and that O-line group, I mean, they were banged up quite literally because of that incident, and having to have a revolving door at a couple of those positions along the front 5 did not serve them very well. But going back to talking about this matchup, and we like to, of course, just maybe speculate a little bit, but talking in terms of a buyout for this one, and the best reference that I had in terms of a kind of apples to apples comparison of what I would put this up against, Ferris State going out to Montana, right? Division II to a scholarship, big-time FCS program. Montana, Western Illinois, certainly not maybe on the same exact playing field with what Montana and that conference in the Big Sky over there has done the last couple of years. That was a reported, not verified, reported $175,000 check to the Bulldogs to go out there and make that trip and almost beat Montana in their own building. It was competitive for most of the game. Montana came away with a decisive win. But what do you think speculative number would be for what these Red Raiders are making?
It's so hard to throw numbers out there, especially with these NAIA schools and working that one. I know that finances are a bit more difficult to talk about than maybe at upper levels of competition. But I think a game like this, you for sure have to be pushing 6 figures. I'm not sure if it's slightly below. I'm not sure if it's slightly above that 100,000 mark. But I think you're going to be floating around that, especially with the fact that Northwestern in the past, you look at their body of work in the past 5-6 years.
Correct.
This is a top end team in the entire country, even if they had, a down year this year. And with the experience and defense coming back, this is a tough test for Western Illinois, truthfully. Like, I think they will go into this game ready to go. They're going to be very serious about it, and they should be. This Northwestern team is not one to mess around with. Like I mentioned, number 1 SP plus defense in the country with most of those guys coming back. They were 20th overall, and they were the highest ranked 4-loss team in SP plus, which, that like silver lining doesn't mean much, right? But this is still a competitive team, even in a quote unquote down year for this program.
Correct. I think the comparison from like an FBS standpoint, I wouldn't quite say it's like scheduling NDSU. That would probably be your grand view right now when I look at the scene of NAIA football. But this would be comparable to signing, a deal with a South Dakota or a North Dakota inside of that league, a middle to upper tier in one of the best conferences in the country. They're going to have a lot to prove. What is the hypothetical line for the matchup, Matt? We do not bet on this show. We talk hypothetical lines. Give me it. Where does it come from? We're not going to say from Vegas, but out of Mitchell down there.
Yeah, out of Mitchell, the sports gambling capital of the world. I would say Western Illinois would probably be a touchdown favorite, or like 6.5, I think.
I was going 8.5. I think we're along the same wavelength there.
Because it feels like with a scholarship FCS program, even the lower tier ones, you're able to bring in talented guys but I think Northwestern can cover that. I really do think they can, especially with how elite the defense was last year, and you get that offense rolling. I mean, you could be looking at a potential upset. I for sure think covering a 6.5 to an 8.5 point spread would be doable for this Red Raiders team.
That is not out of the question at all. They're not the only NAIA team, though, making news right now as the news cycle is a little bit slower than usual. Let's go over to the mid-states, talk about Indiana Wesleyan. Not something they're doing on the field, but off of it. They're changing the game, inking a big-time, historic media rights deal with Urban Edge Network. The agreement represents the largest media rights contract for an individual NAIA institution, reportedly in the 7-figure range. Matt, we want to talk speculative money at this level. This is straight from the release of Indiana Wesleyan. You get to those numbers, all of a sudden schools want to start bragging about that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I read that news initially and I was shocked, to put it lightly. I mean, 7 figures and NAIA schools, teams in any capacity, like those just don't go in the same sentence ever.
Correct.
So the fact that we are talking about this right now, especially with how Urban Edge has kind of taken over, I don't want to say that in a negative connotation, but they've kind of taken over the NAIA streaming space. I mean, you look at the work they've done over the past couple of years. I was at the championship game that they did all of the coverage for. I mean, it was just absolutely unbelievable with what Urban Edge has been able to do this year in making the NAIA football scene accessible to people. And I think it's huge. You know, you look at some of the numbers just from the national championship game alone, they were pushing almost 400,000 viewers on that game. That is unbelievable. You want to talk about accessibility, being able to watch football at all these different levels. It's the main gripe that people have with smaller college football. And that's just slowly not becoming an excuse anymore.
Correct.
Especially with deals like this. Urban Edge is being able to toss out this kind of money. And on the flip side, for Indiana Wesleyan, not only is this a fantastic team that is going to reap the benefits of this, but the entire department's going to benefit from this.
They definitely are, man. I don't want to cut this into a UEN promo, but I'll tell you, they do. They've done it so quickly, and there's a reason why all these conferences are jumping on board with this program right now. You can watch on the web, on the app. It's very easy. It's very accessible, and they're doing a really good job at it. Not being paid by UEN. Would love to change that, but, you keep talking about this and what goes into that figure. How's that made up? As part of the collaboration, IWU Athletics, they'll introduce a uniform branding initiative in partnership with UEN beginning in the spring. UEN will commemorate its 5th year in business with special anniversary logo patches worn across IWU athletic uniforms. So this is not specific to football, obviously. This is across a department-wide shift. Long story short, in layman's terms, slapping the logo on every jersey and uniform that comes out of Indiana Wesleyan down there. And that's a big deal, right? You are the partner, the logo that is going to be on everything Indiana Wesleyan. This is a true kind of title sponsorship for this place and something that is quite unprecedented. I think is not ridiculous to say at this level of college football.
Yeah, absolutely. I think ridiculous, it might be, like I mentioned before, a bit of a negative connotation when you say that, but it really just is out of the realm of being able to be explained. We are entering insane territory with some of these media rights deals and what we are able to accomplish. I think Indiana Wesleyan being the pilot for this as an athletic department is really interesting too, because they are certainly a school that money-wise in the NAIA is definitely in that upper tier. Their facilities are gorgeous. Their campus is gorgeous. All of their media coverage, they're able to have a bigger staff, all this other stuff. It's a really good fit kind of for this initial pilot of all of this. And now, you see a top 10 Indiana Wesleyan team with this bright, green, blue, yellow, and red logo on their jersey. You're like, oh, what's that? It's just like marketing 101.
That's exactly what they're counting on, right? Yeah. I took an official visit down there when Coach Ekins was still on the staff at Indiana Wesleyan. And for an upstart football program, what it was then, it's still very much in its infancy in terms of the grand scheme of things. They set that program up and put all the things, facility, funding, structure, overall, they set that place up right for that football program to be successful off rip. It obviously has paid off in dividends with the team and what they've been able to put out on the field the last couple of years. Yes, they are in kind of that top, at least from an outside perspective, top end in terms of funding and money and this kind of geographical landscape and this level. But the opportunity provides, quote, a pathway for continued investment, allowing 7 programs to hire full-time assistant coaches for the first time Matt. So obviously funding for football, certainly there, certainly in place. I've been able to see it with my own eyes in person down there in Indiana, but these other programs very much benefiting from this deal as well. The question is this the first of many of this kind for schools of this kind? Probably not, is the short answer. We're not going to see this across the board. This is certainly maybe a trial type basis. This is a big investment by UEN to go and do this, but could we see more? Who are the biggest players that can come in and try and replicate this at the different levels of small school football?
Yeah, I think your initial candidates are obviously going to be the public schools in the NAIA, right? Your state schools and all those guys that are able to bring in, more funds through state investment and that sort of thing. Because, the NAIA is mostly private, so there's inherently an advantage to being on that side of things for funding. But I think this will set a sort of a precedent. Maybe we're not going to see 7-figure deals being thrown around, but this is Urban Edge has already worked with not just the NAIA but JUCO, the NJCAA. I always mess that acronym up. I don't think I did that time, thankfully.
Big time HBCU roots as well, yeah. Inside of UEN.
Big time HBC roots. They still provide all that coverage, and on top of that, partnering with specific conferences for NAIA football. You're talking about the Appalachian, the Heart, the KCAC, the Sooner, the Sun, and the Mid-South. I mean, you are already pushing close to half of those football conferences that are working with UEN. I feel like it is just a matter of time before, whether it's a full takeover or just getting their hands in everything. Like, this is a positive for not just the NAIA, but college football media as a whole, truthfully, because accessibility is the name of the game at this level. And I think Indiana Wesleyan is going to prove this partnership to be a good thing. And I think UN is going to want to do this more. Obviously, we can't say that for sure until we see the results of it. But this is about as good of a start as you're going to get with something like this.
Sure, 100%. They'll definitely be watching it and just see what kind of impact this has right away. And there's a lot of big things to take away from that. What's it going to take to get some D1R patches on uniforms? Going to need you to go ahead and take that piggy bank, empty that song gun, and see what we can shake out.
You're getting paid?
Nope. D1R, there's a reason the D1R brand logo is red. That's because company is in. It ain't the green, all right? So we out here for the love of the game, brother. But that is it's a pretty fun deal, exciting for not only Indiana Wesleyan, but I think the proposition is really exciting for schools across not only NAIA, but then now who's the first Division II, Division III school that's going to jump on this with whether it is a Flow Sports who has become kind of a major player in that game or otherwise, who's the next school to kind of hop on this? And obviously, you're going to have some big-time schools and institutions watching this very closely to see what kind of impact is made. And I think there'll be some case studies talked about with this and maybe setting a new precedent at the small school football level. But let's keep it shifting over, dude. Grandview unveiling some new hardware. They just unveiled the Vikings, that is, their championship rings following the 2025 season. These things ridiculously sharp. I'll pull up the picture here for reference, but give me the initial impression of the 14-0 undefeated national champion hardware, dude.
Yeah, this is one of the most beautiful rings I've ever seen. 3 trophies, the boat on the side. I mean, my goodness, it is just, I could just stare at this all day. And then I'd have to remember I don't actually play for this team. And then I'd be bummed out. But yeah, you want to talk about championship pedigree, which is what Grandview has had over the past 5 years. And getting hardware like this to show it off, especially after the performance they had at the national championship game, which I was able to be down there for in Fort Worth, Texas, was absolutely wonderful. And this is a team that is super deserving of that hardware. They've had an incredible season, an incredible 2-year, 3-year run, truthfully. And I think a ring just as beautiful as that one is certainly something to commemorate it in a memorable fashion, because my goodness, I would never take that off if I had that thing.
7th conference title in a row for the Vikings, is the 14th playoff appearance since 2011. Back-to-back NAIA champions. Jackson wearing the back-to-back NAIA Player of the Year. This is a run that I think Dynasty is probably a little overbearing at this point. Probably still need a couple more things going out, or you disagree?
We're getting close. We're really close.
Okay.
I think we're really close with this Grandview team, especially going back to back in the fashion they have. if you can three-peat or if you can go 3 for 4.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that was the conversation we were having with Ferris very recently.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Ferris has won like 37 national titles in a row now, so like they're fine. So, but yeah, I mean, Grandview is very much going to be in that same conversation if they keep up at this pace. It's going to be interesting to see, post Jackson Waring what this team looks like. But I think for the time being, you're in good hands if you're Grandview, and I would expect this team to continue to roll.
Shout out the Allstate plug right there. Let's check in on Jackson Waring and the celebration after that win down in Texas, Matt, that you got to witness. Don't think you were at this after party. Got the boys coming through celebrating. There's the back-to-back player of the year wearing the red banner coming into the bar, this massive sports bar with all the Grandview fans. Power move from the signal caller.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, man, that banner made the rounds on the field after the game. There were guys taking pictures with that thing wrapped around them with the trophy. Kissing the trophy. I'm sure half of them were even bench warmers, which makes it even better because, like,
love it.
I mean, my goodness, man. Like, how can you not celebrate something like this? It's awesome.
They got to put the official mark on the trophy there. That is incredible.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, just they showed up not only to the game, but their fan base traveled super well too. It is no surprise that the after party was as crazy as it looked on that footage there. Grandview faithful, man. It's got to be a good time to be a Viking, don't you think?
Shout out. What a good way to close it off, dude. Appreciate you. Good start to NAIA football offseason. Some fun things in the work. But otherwise, we'll keep chatting about what's going on. Sound good, dude?
Yeah, good deal.